So welcome back to the SynergyXR studio. Suna, welcome back to you. Oh, sorry. Welcome back to you. You've been here before.
Yeah.
We've brought in, excuse me, we've brought in a new mic.
Yeah.
We brought in a new person to our group, CEO Mads Troelsgaard. Mads, great to have you with us.
Thank you very much.
Your first time in the studio.
Yeah, I love it.
What do you think?
What you've done.
I know. Have you guys seen the new neon sign behind us?
Yeah, it's so
I really wanted to point that out. We put a lot of time and effort into that.
You did?
We did.
The
we did.
Details, right?
Yeah.
It's the devil's in the details, right?
Yeah.
So, guys, we're here today to talk about our good friend, digital twins.
Yeah.
And as we know, digital twins is super hyped right now, also kind of in line with we're talking about the Metaverse. But as we know, SynergyXR, we've been working with digital twins for quite some time, and it can be a pretty complex, a pretty cumbersome process. And at least until now, you've had to be kind of a tech wizard to figure them out. But things are fortunately changing. We're putting tools in people's hands that allow them to use their iPhones, to use their tablets to create digital twins. And that's kind of what we're here to talk about today, because what we want to do is we want to give business leaders the insights so they can start thinking about how digital twins and IoT kind of fits into their overall digital transformation strategies. So what we're going to be digging in today is what are digital twins, help people really get their heads around them, but also kind of decipher what they are and what they're not. We're also going to be looking at, what this means for business. Let's drill down in some of the use cases. And then we're going to talk about, the title of this session today, this webinar, is how to create a digital twin in less than an hour. So we're going to be looking at how we do that. Also going to be looking at examples that maybe take a little bit longer than an hour. And then we're going to conclude in terms of how do we take IoT data and how do we add that to a digital twin. So that's the game plan for today. I think we should get started.
Yeah.
Great. So the first thing I want to show you guys is I did a little research and looked at how the search term digital twin has kind of evolved over the last 8 years. So this starts back in 2014 all the way up to July 2021. And I think we can all agree there's been an increased focus and increased interest in just people searching for the word digital twin. And I think that's super exciting. And I think that's also something that that a lot of people are obviously interested in right now. However, let's start somewhere differently. Let's start from the very, very beginning. I want you guys to help me understand and help the people at home understand what is a digital twin anyway. Suna, let's start with you.
I think it's a good question. And I think it very quickly boils down to semantics, and it can very quickly become something that people are almost like religious about. And I think it also like your search trend there also is because I think we just used to use other terms back in the days, like that search term graph, like it started during my PhD actually. Back then we called it other stuff, like it was more like cyber-physical systems. So like having a combination of a physical system and something like digital or cyber that controls it. Even terms like phygital has been used. I really despise that word. But
tell me more about phygital. What does that mean?
It's basically, again, like this combination of something physical and something digital. Okay. And it's just put together as phygital.
Physical, digital, boom.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
so,
phygital.
yeah, I really...
or you hate it, sorry.
Yeah, but that's just me, it's okay. But it's just to say, like, I think at least some of the use cases and some of the visions of what we today call digital twins, we just used to call something else. So it's been on people's minds for years. And I think it's also, I think today we'll try to not go into too deep into semantics and having this being like a religious discussion of, is this a digital twin or has that enough sort of functionality to really be accepted as a digital twin.
So do we often look at it on a spectrum then?
I would do that, yeah. But again, I think there are people out there that are very religious and only say like, only if you can do this and this and that, that is a true digital twin. But in my point of view, like it can be everything from basically a digital representation. So for example, like a 3D scan of something real.
Okay.
So that could be like a product that you, glass
could be
of
this
water.
glass of water, yeah.
But that is sort of like on the far left of the scale. Like it doesn't have any
lightweight
functionality, but you can there's still use cases where that can be helpful. So we can still use that for discussing like the design decisions and figure out like just size and mass. Like does it fit where we want it to fit? Then if you go like step up the ladder, you can add like actually start adding data to it. So if this physical thing generates some data, then your digital representation, your digital twin.
I'm going to be using this as an example. It's probably a horrible example. So
like
how much water?
The water level,
the
temperature of the water, the viscosity of the water, like stuff like that. If that sort of creates value, then linking that together, so you don't have to actually have the physical product and have a temperature probe. You can just look at your digital twin, your digital representation of it, and have that same data represented to you. Then you can take it even further. Being able to actually from the digital twin controlling the physical object. I think it's hard to do the analogy with the glass of water now.
Okay, we'll stop there then.
So let's go back to like maybe a production line or a complex product. So you being able to control that, send commands to it.
It could be a robot arm.
Yeah,
for example.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like basically being able to control it based on the sensory input you have without actually being there and like pulling a physical joystick, you can do it through your digital twin. And then I think if we were to take it like just yet another step, would be able to create do future simulations. So doing simulations of your digital twin. So beginning to be able to have like create what if scenarios. Without actually doing it on the physical object, but doing it on your digital twin and having that being precise enough. So if you do this action to your digital twin, you can see the outcome. And if you do the same action to your physical product, the same outcome will actually happen. So that's sort of trying at least to say like this spectrum can be quite broad. And that at least my point of view, that showcases some of those different levels of fidelity of a digital twin, and also that supports different kinds of use cases.
So it's a broad term with, you can split it up. So digital copies, digital shadows, all of this spectrum is within the overall digital twin.
Why do you guys think that it's been trending so much over the last 8 years? What's the reason behind that?
The digital transformation that is happening right now in companies worldwide, the speed that we are moving into a full digital world and digitalizing the physical world, but also digitalizing objects. So when you build a new product today, you almost always build it in a 3D environment.
Before you actually produce the real thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you already have all the components. So now we just have the technology to put them all together where it makes sense.
Right. So the timing seems to be everything. Isn't it correct that the whole digital twin concept was created around NASA when they were trying to do some type of simulation with their rocket ship? Or is that a myth?
I don't know. I haven't read up on my history. Apparently, it could be, but again, I think other people will claim it was invented by someone else, just under another name.
I'm sure.
Basically, coming back to the introduction.
And who knows if we'll continue to call it digital twin in the future? It'll probably call it something. I like what you said before. What was the term you used before back in your PhD? What was that?
Cyber-physical system.
Cyber-physical systems.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Can I check real quick with our sound guy, Jacob, how we're doing on sound? We're okay? We're all synced up? People at home are happy? Wonderful. Great. Okay, great. So listen, just to give people a clear definition, and I love your definition, Soon. I think it's really set us up for how we're going to talk about this going forward, basically by saying, look, there's probably not one definition. There are many definitions. This is one that I found that seems to be fairly universally accepted on the web. And I'm just going to read it out loud. A digital twin is a virtual representation, keyword virtual representation, I guess it could be a digital representation, that serves as the real-time digital counterpart of a physical object or process. Can we get behind that at a high level?
Yeah, at a high level, yeah. It definitely covers a lot of the things. It being real-time also sort of implies that you can see real-time what the physical thing is doing, right? So either through data or animations or whatever. It's lacking like the last two parts that I described. So actually you being able to to control the physical
Right.
object,
Right.
as well as doing like simulation and stuff like that. But yeah, I think again, avoid going into semantics.
Sure.
I think it's a valid definition. Yeah.
Okay, we'll avoid the semantic
Yeah.
pitfall there.
Yeah.
Great. So, quick question. As a visual reference, when I searched for digital twin on Google, this is one of the images that came up. I want to put this to you. Is this what you're thinking of when you think of digital twin?
Yeah, it could be.
It looks to be some type of jet engine.
Just about to say it could be, because it could actually just be like dead data, like just someone who just like draw some nice graphs and.
Well, I'm
like
pretty sure it
buttons.
is. I'm pretty sure it's a
Probably is.
marketing. But let's
Exactly.
imagine this is a
But
real life
if,
situation.
like on a more meta level, right? The fact that you actually have a physical product under there, you have a 3D representation of it, that it looks lifelike, and you have like associated data, like real-time data, and also what looks like something where you can like look up sort of like more static data, like data sheets and stuff like that. The fact that it's actually that the virtual representation is overlaid on the physical is not necessary.
Okay.
In my point of view.
Okay.
At least.
Why not?
Like sometimes it can even become like disturb your view.
Yeah.
Like if you want to actually use the digital representation to like do an exploded view and look into it, and then compare it to the real physical thing, if they're overlaid, sometimes, at least for some use cases, that can sort of work against the use case. So just to say, like, that is not a necessity that they're linked and aligned with the real thing. You could also imagine use cases where it would be more interested to actually like log into your digital twin from afar, so not being on site.
Yep.
So the fact that it's like co-located is not necessary.
Matt, do you have any comments you want to share on this?
Yeah,
What are your thoughts?
I think so. Being in front of a jet engine like this, it should be like the virtual representation. This one from maybe a jet engine that would be on a
real airplane, maybe
real
in
plane,
flight.
or in a test facility
Yeah,
or something
or-
like that, right? Where you can actually see the data, how it's operating right now, because you can also see the guys that are looking through it with the iPad. So basically, it's probably some use of
Fairly small screen.
Yeah,
so-
I know.
yeah,
So, so the camera that we are looking at,
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
So yeah, but I think it gives an idea about what a digital twin is.
And clearly,
right?
that's what this
Yes.
image does. And the most important thing, guys, they have hard hats on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Safety first. So I think what's on everyone's minds, I know I hear a lot of people talking about this, is what about people? What about us humans as digital twins? Obviously, we'll save a lot of this for our avatar webinar, which we'll be having in the near future, because I know that everybody talks about that. Why? Because we always think about ourselves. That's how we are as humans, right?
It's easier to relate to as well.
It is, of course, and a lot of the avatars that we're seeing, at least also with our product as well, is that avatars are still kind of cartoonish looking. Some have just the torso, some have hands. Most have hands, I would say. Most have heads. Some have torsos. Some have legs. Some don't have legs. But either way, this image is from Facebook. I'm sorry, Meta's Horizons, kind of give it an idea of what their avatars look like. So this is kind of where we are today. Some have tried a little bit different. Some, like Spatial, for example, have done some other type of avatars. But more or less, this is where we are today as an industry, for better or worse. What I am interested in hearing is, like, where are we headed in the future? And the reason I asked this, because I came across this video from our friends at, actually this video, when it came out, they were still called Facebook, obviously called Meta today, where they kind of show where we're headed in the future in terms of digital twins, avatars. Should we see this real quick and then talk about it afterwards?
Sure.
Hi there. My name is Yasser, and I direct the Facebook Reality Research Lab in Pittsburgh. Well, that's not completely true. What you're seeing is actually a rendering of my pre-recorded codec avatar. Over the past couple of years, we've made quite a bit of progress with codec avatars. My avatar can now look left, look right, look up, look down, make facial expressions, ooh, and natural hand gestures like snapping your fingers, pointing, counting, cracking your knuckles, and also challenging body poses that involve self-contact. The goal of our work
so we don't have to get into it anymore. But when I saw this, and I think this probably speaks for anybody who's watching as well, is that this was pretty amazing. I mean, it's quite a bit of a leap from what we saw before to this right here. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. How far are we away from this, and how much technology are they pouring into this actually make this possible? And maybe the last question, is this even feasible for people who are at home to create these types of avatars? Mass, you want to start?
Yeah.
Because I think that's pretty awesome to know that that's
is.
not a real person right
Yeah,
there. That's
yeah.
a virtual digital representation of a person.
Yeah. The reason why we don't have that today is because the technology is not ready for basically to have these kind of avatars yet.
At least not at the level where the average consumer can have it.
No, exactly. You can see all the sensors around him
Yeah.
in this
Yeah.
super expensive setup. But we know, of course, they are working on getting like a lot of sensors inside the headsets, so you can do like mimic and stuff like that in there. So when you raise your eyebrows and stuff like that, I think that will come quite soon. And also eye tracking, we also see that in the new headsets and stuff like that that's coming out. So a lot of that, we are moving in this transition. I think it's really gonna get hard to get all the body parts and everything in there. So I think we're gonna see first probably facial expressions and all of that come. We already can do that to some extent today. Before we are at that level where we like have it at that quality for us consumers, I would guess 5 years maybe.
But 5 years, that's not a lot of time.
No.
That's pretty fast.
Yeah. But
So really what I hear you saying is that in order to be able to have this virtual representation, you have to have some type of camera to actually see the body part and to create a virtual representation. And we don't have that today because the cameras we have are built into our headsets. And then the only other device we have are the controllers.
Yeah.
And those are the two data points that we have to create avatars.
Yeah.
Is that how we should understand it?
Yeah, at least for consumer hardware, right? So like he's standing in the box with like hundreds of cameras that can do very precise tracking. I think it's also important to note, like you said, pre-recorded avatar. So
Sure.
So this is not something that can just be like processed and used at runtime, which is what we would like,
Right, in real time.
So we could
Right.
collaborate and
Right.
actually not me sitting here, but an avatar representation of me. And I think there's also something just to, because like I know we have human twins like from the same mother, but I would say like this is sort of stretching the digital twin concept a little bit. I like the way that we're touching on it, but I think just one thing that's worth mentioning, which is also relevant for digital twins, is the idea that it being fit for purpose. And so actually having sort of a level of fidelity and a representation of either an avatar or like a digital representation of a physical product being as good as it needs to be.
Right.
So that's also a discussion worth for our avatar webinar, like, is this actually needed?
Yeah.
And for what type of interactions and use cases is a level of this fidelity actually needed, and is it okay with the more cartoonish avatars? Like, are there some restrictions in sort of the use cases we can look into with that? But I think the entire idea of like also just a digital twin being fit for purpose is really, really something that is worth discussing. Like, you don't need to have the highest level of fidelity if what you actually just need is to be able to do some remote monitoring of how your production facility is doing, right? Then you don't need like the highest level where you can control and simulate and do everything.
I think it could be interesting, though, from a medical perspective, to have a digital twin. I may be misusing the name there. To have a digital twin of yourself, if you had any type of data,
biometric sensors.
Biometric sensors,
like
yeah. I mean,
it's
that's
already
probably
been done.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Let's put a pin in it, and we'll save it for the avatar webinar.
I think so.
I think that's a super exciting conversation. So I want to show you guys. Let me get out of this real quick. I want to show you something else real quick that I came across. This is from a company called IoT Analytics, and they shared this Rubik's Cube. Let's just call it a Rubik's Cube, a really sophisticated Rubik's Cube, where they've basically identified 250 different permutations or classifications of a digital twin. And when I saw this, my initial thought was, well, that makes sense. That's why there's so much confusion around digital twin, because there's a lot of different ways of looking at it. they're looking at a different hierarchical levels. So from basically just pure informational, taking a analog user manual and making it into a digital version, all the way up to multi-system. And I think similar to what you were talking about, going in and being able to look at an entire production line, but also adjust it. But there's also use cases, and I think that's what we're going to get into in a moment. There's also life cycle phases, all the way from the design to the decommission. What are your? We're gonna dig into this a little bit more. But what are your thoughts when you see this?
I think again, like the discussion of being fit for purpose, and it really underlines that this is it's not like a digital twin isn't one thing. Like it's a continuum of different things that are related. And you can even see like what we talked about, like actually being able to visualize something and then being able to actually simulate it and stuff like that, and do even predictions and stuff like that. But they try to cover that in this very smart model, and I think it just really supports our claim of this being not just like a single definition of what this is.
Yeah.
There's a continuum here that is fit for different types of use cases.
I think it's good. I think the best way of looking at it is probably to be an umbrella term that encompasses quite abundant different things. Well, we're going to be coming back to this, so I just want to get you guys. So those of you who were with us a few weeks ago, we did, actually about a month ago, we did a podcast on the Metaverse, the corporate Metaverse, where we outlined 7 rules for success. How does the whole digital twin, or does the digital twin concept, how does that fit, or does it fit into the concept of the Metaverse?
I think it can definitely, and it probably should if you start building your corporate metaverse, where you start connecting all of your different virtual experiences, like for training and monitoring and maintenance. Like a digital twin could be like sort of a cornerstone of such a corporate metaverse. Like there are a lot of stuff here that doesn't really apply, like NFTs and stuff like that, not necessarily at least, and it's not something that we're concerned about, at least in this day and age.
So an NFT is not a digital twin?
Nope.
Okay, all right. You heard it here first.
But you could probably
we'll save that for the NFT.
You could actually you could actually apply an NFT to a digital twin if you were to sell it as a unique digital product. So you could.
There you go.
But it's definitely not a one-to-one match. No.
Okay.
In my point of view.
Let's not open that Pandora's box right now. Mass, did you have anything you wanted to add to this?
No. So we talked about the corporate metaverse and, of course, the workplace and digital assets is highlighted here. And
right.
I think that's for our interest most of this, of course.
Great. So let's jump forward, because I think the question on everyone's mind right now, we briefly touched on it before, is use cases. So I'm a company leader. My question is, why are digital twins important for companies at all? Why should they care?
I think there's a huge opportunity to optimize a lot of processes and do a lot of savings. Mm-hmm. And also, we have to focus more on our CO2 emissions as well, sustainability. So with creating digital twins of actual sites enables...
So physical work sites.
Yeah, exactly. Then you don't have to travel there. You can, use those digital twins for whatever purpose that makes sense in that work situation.
Okay.
So you don't have to travel there. You can, example, if you have a production line in Shanghai,
right?
You could do a digital twin of that. You could basically scan it or build it up from your CAD models, and see how it's operating. Also, if you have the data available, you could see exactly how it's real time operating, monitoring real time. I think then you don't have to actually travel there. So 10 years ago, you would have to send a technician out if something went wrong. If there was downtime on this machine, you have to send a person out there to fix the problems. Today, you can use that digital twin in other virtual reality. We talked about Metaverse as well, but it could also just be on your laptop, and you could guide a local technician to fix the problem without having to travel there. So you could optimize those processes extremely fast. You could of course, save a lot of money because downtime on machinery is expensive. It always is. But also downtime on employees that you have to spend like 3 days traveling there. And you could save the cost for hotels and whatever, there's so many ways that we can optimize processes today with creating digital twins of actual work sites.
So you mentioned, for example, doing the whole remote support, maybe remote monitoring, saving on time, saving on travel. What are some of the other ways that digital twins can bring value to organizations? Sooner, what's top of mind for you?
I think something like training and just like preparing to go on site. So maybe you have like a new employee who needs to be able to do service on this technical installation. Like it can be like a pumping facility or whatever. Like you could actually bring him in a virtual representation in a digital twin of this and start teaching him about the different maintenance scenarios that he needs to actually run. So basically learn him, upskill him so he's prepared for this. And then even like when he knows, like it's planned, I'm going there tomorrow. So like I'll just today jump in, just check out the data. Is everything looking as it should? And by the way, I'll just measure like how much pipe do I need if I need to change this and this part of the installation.
What kind of tools?
Yeah, exactly. So he's as prepared as possible. So we don't end up going there and figuring out, oh, I should have brought these and these materials and these tools. So he needs to go back and get them and then come another day. So really saving a lot of time on traveling by being as prepared as possible. Because a digital twin will not completely avoid people to go to the physical product, right? Like
hopefully not.
No, you will still need to do that. It's just like avoiding those unnecessary trips there, which is definitely and can be a huge cost save and time save.
Yeah, so cutting back on our travel, saving time, but also it just seems, I think that the word that I'm thinking of is just increasing our efficiencies across the board.
Exactly.
Working, and I love this term, working smarter, not harder. And it seems as though from what you talked about earlier, Mads, the reason we haven't been doing this until now is because the technology hasn't been available.
Yeah, true. And I think another thing, like from a more holistic view from a company, is knowledge sharing. So it's easy for you to actually make a teleportation of your new employees to all the different sites you have in the, because today, if you get hired in a company like a large company organization like Novo Nordisk or something like that, you will not go to all the sites and see what it looks like in the production facilities in Brazil or in Shanghai or New York, whatever. But here you actually have the opportunity in a few hours, you can actually bring them out to these different sites. So to get the full understanding of your company, what it is that they do in Brazil, what they do in America,
right,
and maybe also actually meet employees that you'll never meet.
And that's the thing, because it's not as though you're just visiting a picture or a virtual representation. No. You can there will actually be people, avatars, colleagues in these spaces. So I guess the idea of a site visit or a company visit takes on a whole new meaning when we think about digital twins.
Do it within hours instead of weeks of planning and a lot of wasted time and money on this. And that, I think that is super important for the new employee to get a broader understanding of what the company really does. So they know why there's a single task that they have to solve, why that isn't so important.
Right. So let's talk about companies that don't necessarily work in production or manufacturing or these large complex systems that we're talking about. How can companies use digital twins, for example, in like the design phase, the development phase. It can cost a lot of money to go out and build things.
Yeah.
But is this something we can use maybe in a prototyping context?
Definitely. So that's basically, it's usually one of the top priorities, top goals when you start doing simulations of either changes to existing products or when you're designing completely new products, to cut down on physical prototypes. So like, imagine you were to build a new combiner or something like that. Like, it's really expensive to get that wrong if you need to actually build and do all the build it actually physically and do the test runs, and then you figure out, ooh, it's actually front heavy, so it doesn't really go very well uphill or whatever. You being able to build a digital twin and being able to run simulations, so you just get that knowledge, and cutting down on those physical prototypes is, again, a huge time and money saver.
I could definitely see that being used across all industries.
Exactly, yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And the collaboration from different sides, so you can have a designer that's placed in China and another colleague in Argentina that meets in there and discuss the new design, right? You can run tests, also focus group tests and stuff like that on the design before you actually start producing it.
Yeah.
Inside the digital
within
twin,
virtual reality or something like that, right?
Right. So there's the collaborative aspect as well. One thing is digital twin, the other is bringing your teams together across the world to meet in a much more collaborative context without having to travel, be there in person.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. We may come back to this. There's a few more things that we want to cover. The next one is obviously question that's on everyone's mind is, how do you create this digital twin that we've just spent a lot of time talking about? And I want to start by showing this video. It's actually a view. You're the star of this video, where you kind of walk around our office. You use some of the new technology to do a scan, and then actually I'm just going to let you narrate from there.
All right. Yeah. So with the new devices from Apple, they have LiDAR sensors in it. So that enables you to do scans of environments or products super easy. So now I'm just scanning with the iPad. You can also use your iPhone.
This is our office. Yeah.
Yeah, that's our office. So it only takes 2 minutes to do a scan like that, and as you can see, it's a digital copy of our entrance here in the office. And within a couple of minutes, I can add it into our SynergyXR platform and place that copy I just created. So right now, I have it in virtual reality in here, a true copy of our entrance here in the office, only done in a few minutes. And now I can actually invite colleagues from Copenhagen or United States into this.
Anywhere in the world.
We can actually invite them into our entrance here.
Right.
Where we have.
Okay. And so the alternative would obviously be you go around with FaceTime trying to show them this.
Yeah. And once I hang up, it's gone.
It's gone.
Right? Yeah.
Right.
But here I actually have a copy and I can save it into a space.
Yeah.
And I can revisit it.
And what are you using on your iPhone or your iPad? Is there any type of special functionality, or is it just an app that you've downloaded?
It's just an app. There's many different 3D scanner apps out there. It can be Scanniverse, Polycam.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mentioned I noticed that you use the word digital copy. What's the difference between digital copy and a digital twin?
So we can still say that a digital copy is beneath this broader umbrella term.
Okay,
of digital
so it's a type
twin,
of digital twin.
Yeah. But it's the simplest version of a digital twin. I would call it, like Sune talked about in the beginning of the whole spectrum of digital twins, right? So that is the simplest version of that.
Just seeing if there's anything else that we add to this. I think this is just our entire office.
I think what's worth highlighting is, of course, how easily you can meet up with colleagues in there, so you can see different people being present there, being represented as avatars, and you can discuss. So going back to your sort of design review, if this were we could even discuss do we need to have a bigger screen, or are there any things we need to change?
So this can be for, of course, refurnishing an environment, but it could also. So now this is our entrance in the company. It could also be a production site where you actually see, is there room for this new robot?
Because this is to scale, right?
Yeah, exactly.
This is to scale, right? So the difference is, if I took a photo, shared that photo, maybe we had a Zoom meeting, that's kind of virtual, but you and I can't step into the
No.
actual space.
You would never understand the full, spatial.
This is the spatial side of the whole
Exactly.
digital twin, the whole metaverse, right?
Yeah.
And spatial persistence as well, because this isn't going to change, right?
The thing is, it's not what I would call spatial persistent.
Okay.
Because this is basically a copy, and you can move that anywhere. We actually have devices that can track the real world. We'll come to that in a minute, I know. That actually would enable, if Mass were using the HoloLens and walking around in the entrance here, he would actually be aligned with that. So someone joining from afar would see exactly where he was walking around.
In the physical environment.
Exactly.
In the real environment.
So that's really, it gets a bit
that's the
hard
big
to understand. But yeah, it is like, just imagine again, like on a production line, you would have an on-site worker. You would see exactly where he was walking around working. So you being able to do much better like remote support and guidance, even though you were joining from across the globe.
And to me, this seems as though this is this new dimension of visual communication that we haven't really had until now.
Yeah,
Yes.
Which is kind of driven largely by the power of 3D, right?
It is the next level of communication.
Yeah.
We'll stop there now.
Yeah.
It's the next level of communication.
It is.
Great. So let's move on, because I know we have another video, and this is another example of a digital twin. However, a little bit more complex. I'm going to fast forward a little bit. Suna, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about this. But yeah, why don't you tee it up and tell us a little bit what we're looking at?
Sure. So this is actually this is a digital copy or digital twin of the Bidder Waterworks just south of Aarhus, where we have our headquarters, that we built for Grundfos. It's a state-of-the-art water treatment facility with a lot of like the newest products from Grundfos, and we built this entirely from the BIM model, so building information model, that defines like all the geometry and also like stuff like where the electricity is in the walls and stuff like that. But we used all the geometry to do a true copy of the Bidder Waterworks. So no one has gone around with a scanner. This is a bit too big, a bit too large to do a scan of. And of course, this is a bit beyond doing things in an hour. We've had our very talented graphical team working on this for like a bit more than a week to sort of get it at this level of polish. But again, you can sort of do the same thing as you can with the scan, right? So you have this representation of the actual, like true to scale again, of how it actually looks. You can start teaching like how you work and how you do your normal like morning round when you need to do maintenance and checkup of the facility and stuff like that. And as here you can see, it's from a clip where Grundfos invited a lot of colleagues to actually receive training on how such a water treatment plant worked. So they have just a better understanding and can put their day-to-day work into context of like a broader system.
So they're able to visit the digital twin of the water workplace instead of actually having to go there physically.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
so the trainer actually joined from Copenhagen, and the site here is
They're all over
just
the world, aren't they?
out of Aarhus.
Oh, yeah, the actual site, yeah.
Yeah, and the actual site is just outside
Right.
of Aarhus. The trainer joined from Copenhagen, and all the different persons joined from the homes, just with the virtual reality.
And they were all
headsets.
over the world.
All over the world.
That's exciting. We also have one more, and this is one that's, so this video is taken from the latest release of SynergyXR 2.0, where actually the highlight was also, the whole idea about digital twins and how we've kind of unlocked some of the hidden powers of the HoloLens. Suna, do you want to walk us through this?
Sure. Yeah, this comes back to what I was talking about, using the HoloLens, which also has this depth sensor, so we can so you can wear it on site. You can start creating a scan, so you get the geometry. But not only that, but you can also apply the same types of textures as Mass showed with the iPad, right? But the thing is, like while you're doing this scan, the HoloLens actually plants what we call anchors, so spatial anchors, so it can actually recognize this place following days. And that's what I would call spatially persistent.
Sure.
So this model actually lives in the real world, and it's completely aligned, like the digital parts of it and the real physical location is aligned. So when you have actually Jacob walking around with the HoloLens. He's represented as an avatar, but it's a complete, like, it's aligned where he is in the real world.
Right.
And Mikkel here joining from a PC can see how he interacts, and you can
Right.
much more easily
Right.
like show him around and troubleshoot, or like even like do teaching and onboarding, whatever you need to do, right?
So the difference between this and what we showed before with Massascan is in virtual reality, so the people aren't actually at the same physical location. Whereas
Exactly.
this avatar that we're seeing here right now, that's basically Jacob walking around.
Exactly.
And that's a huge difference in terms of things like remote support.
Yeah, and you can still do the same thing. So you can join from across the globe in the virtual copy, in the digital twin here, right? Which is what Mikkel is doing from a PC here.
Yeah, because he's offering the support here, right?
Exactly. So that is and it's not been done on the HoloLens before. Like, we're already pushing the boundaries of what we can do, like how large a scan we can do with HoloLens. It's by now it's a very impressive device, but it's also aging a bit. Like, it's a few years old by now, coming up on 4 years or something like that before it was actually like released. So you can also see like the camera isn't as good as what we see in like state-of-the-art iPhones, for example. So some of the quality is a bit less, but it's just to show sort of the intention and our vision of creating a digital twin which is spatially persistent, so it's actually tied to the real world.
And who else can do something like this with the HoloLens?
To our knowledge, no one.
That's interesting. So let's move on to the next thing, because one thing is being able to create a digital twin. The other is being able to add IoT information to it.
Yeah.
And we can see that a little bit later on in the video. So we've got the same scan, and I'll just fast forward here, and we can see now we have IoT data. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so we know a lot of companies, a lot of our customers are already gathering IoT, so Internet of Things data, or industrial IoT, or real-time monitoring data, or whatever you want to call it. Again, it's we just use IoT as a broad umbrella
We'll
term.
save that for the IoT webinar.
Oh yeah, maybe we should. Yeah, but yeah, it's just for like real-time generated data. So we enable users to easily send that to our platform. And then you can start adding data dashboards, which are updated at real time.
So this is real time.
Exactly. And again, that puts that extra layer. So it's not only a physical copy of a digital copy of the physical location, but you can also start seeing the data that is actually being generated there.
So, for example, this is going back to the Billa Waterworks. And now what we're seeing now is that same digital twin now with IoT.
Exactly.
And you could save it into the space, so it'll be there the next time you come
So-
there. Also in the physical environment.
So I know that they send out technicians on I think it's a bi-weekly basis to go and walk around and make sure that everything's okay. They could effectively just go into a digital twin and walk around.
Without claiming to be an expert on water treatment plants, you could definitely.
Which we are not.
It's exactly.
Right.
You could easily like just jump in and just get a quick overhead glance of like how all the data, like does everything seem out of order? Is there something special I should take into consideration when I need to go there next week or whatever? And you might even in time be able to make less travels there, just because most often you only need to get that glance. Like, okay, the machine program state it's still at 4, it's as it should be. The power consumption isn't too high. Everything is good. Okay, I don't need to go this week. Like that's sort of the dream.
Because it seems as though what this does, instead of just looking at a dashboard, because this same data could very well just be on somebody's screen or an app, this provides another layer of context.
Exactly, yeah. So you can show it either where it's being generated, so just above the sensor that actually measures these data, or just where it makes sense for the on-site technician, because sometimes they need to actually see what the sensor like in the far end of the water treatment plant is generating, and compare that to another sensor, and they can easily do this. So we leave that up to the end user of how you actually want to do that.
This is great. And do we have any companies? How are companies responding to this?
We see a lot of interest, definitely. So we're running pilots right now, and we invite more companies to contact us in case this is interesting to them, to sort of figure out, because we have a long roadmap also what we want to do with IoT data and digital twins in general. We also have some interesting devices that we will support in the not so distant future.
Okay.
Without saying too much. So that's going to be really interesting to a lot of people, I think, and making this digital twin creation much more approachable and accessible to a lot of people. So
Seems
we're
like-
really looking forward to that. Huge technical undertaking, but we can't wait to show it
Yeah,
to
so if
people.
any of you out there, you represent companies who want to learn more about this, who want to try this, then feel free to get in touch with us, and we'll be happy to share more with you.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's move forward. I think what's something that could be on everybody's mind right now, if I can get forward, is what steps can companies take to get started? So, Mass, do you want to walk us through this? So if you're talking to a company leader right now, they say, Mass, this all sounds really, really exciting. Where do I start? I want to get our company into this. I want to dip our toe into the metaverse, so to speak. How do I get started?
I think you should, go through some of the processes and identify some of those needs that you have, and then start small. I think it's super important just to get started.
And by that, you mean what? Just proof of concept, a pilot project?
Yeah, exactly. And maybe like have 1 to 3 different use cases you want to test this in, and then really just start small, or whatever you have the capacity for or resources for. But I think sitting and waiting is definitely the wrong thing to do.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Saying, all right, we are not ready. You should start investigating this now.
And why shouldn't why shouldn't companies wait for 3, 4, 5 more years? What do they have to lose by?
One thing is
waiting.
the competitors is probably already looking into this. So at least getting competitive advantage.
So competitive advantage. Okay.
I think that's, also because it takes time to implement these new technologies in companies. And the further you get experiences with it, you're just a lot farther down the road of implementing these technologies. It takes time. We are humans, and it takes time for us to use to get used to new technologies. So it is super important for your employees to get familiar with this. So you cannot just wait till you think the technology is ready, and then bang, the next day we have implemented this with success. No, people have to get used to it. They have to, use it every day to really get familiar with it and understand all the possibilities, because you might have an idea about what you could use it for, but once you get started using it, thousands of new ideas and possibilities will pop up.
Right. So what I hear you guys say is identify a need, a few needs, try to initiate a pilot within the organization, start small, keep your team small, incubate it within the organization, and then grow from there, and then try to build a really good business case to show the return on investment.
Yeah.
So it makes perfect sense. So I know that we have our strategy development workshops, because one thing is offering people three headlines. The other is actually helping them take that first step, bringing some of their management teams together and some of the other key players. What do we do with our strategy development workshops? Why don't you tell us a bit more about them and how companies can benefit?
So we basically help them out identifying many of these needs, and depending on where they are in the process, helping them to get started, outline where and how, and basically also putting a timeline for them that fits exactly to their companies. And then we help them out, get started with, make a plan, basically.
Help them set the right team.
Exactly. Also that.
Establish manageable expectations.
Yeah, and there's many different approaches to this. Some companies would, hire resources or hire externals to help them out, just prove the business case. And some will like to have full control and do it themselves all the way. And, so we kind of identify all of that in one of those strategy workshops, and, help them make a plan for how they can approach this.
Yeah. And this is something we've been doing for a long time, right?
Yeah. Over a decade.
Over a decade. Great, guys. Well, do you have any closing remarks before we end today?
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it was a pleasure having you. And again, thanks to all of you for joining us as well. And if you want to know more about who we are, what we do, and why we do it, then visit us online at SynergyXR.com. That's SynergyXR.com. Thanks so much for joining us for this webinar, and we can't wait to see you at our next webinar. Until then, have a great day.
Thanks.
Cool.
That was great. Awesome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
It was fun.
Went well.
I know. It's getting warm in here.
Can I beatbox now?
You can.
Very well.
Yeah.
Can you beatbox?